Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, June 3rd. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Calls for gun control reform are growing louder following a string of mass shootings. And tonight on National Gun Violence Awareness Day, Governor Newsom announced a new campaign aimed at making communities safer. It will focus on outreach and education about California's red flag laws, which allow for the temporary removal of guns and ammunition from individuals who are at risk of harming themselves or others. The effort comes as lawmakers continue their debate over ways to stop mass shootings and while parents prepare for a weekend of demonstrations to save lives. KPBS education reporter M.G. Perez begins with some background on San Diego's history with gun violence.
This bench is a place to sit and remember San Diego's first school mass shooting 43 years ago. Then 16-year-old Brenda Spencer used a semi-automatic rifle her father gave her to shoot at a San Carlos elementary school. She killed the principal and custodian and seriously injured 8 students and a police officer. They are remembered with this monument by the bench at the San Diego Unified School District Administration Building.
Since then, guns have been even more easily available.
Casey Zahner remembers the Brenda Spencer case and is now an active leader of the San Diego chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. She's wearing orange in honor of those killed by gun violence and those who survived. This weekend, the Moms Group will lead orange demonstrations across the nation.
People are talking about it. People are aware that there are a variety of things that we can do to end gun violence, to prevent gun violence. And so I've seen the conversation change. I've seen people being more willing to talk to their legislators about the importance of this issue.
In fact, lawmakers in Sacramento have fast-tracked their debate with several bills on the table at the moment, including legislation that would finally outlaw so-called ghost guns that can't be traced. Another bill would allow gun makers to be sued and held accountable for deaths caused by weapons they produce.
To be very clear, the weapon that was used to perpetrate the unspeakable horror in Texas last week would be illegal to sell to a person of any age in the state of California today.
Ari Freilich is with the Giffords Law Center, which is monitoring the progress of legislation. He confirmed California's ban on assault weapons remains in effect, despite a conservative judge's recent attempt to block it.
At a certain point, with lawmakers who stand in the way of progress and have continued not to change their minds, at a certain point we'll have to change who we elect instead of changing their minds.
Students are also standing up for their right to safe schools. In Long Beach today, there was a massive walkout of students at a local high school. KPBS News has learned that students at some San Diego County high schools planned walkouts for next week, protesting the ongoing gun violence. Brenda Spencer is still in prison. She is eligible for parole again this September. Even if she is released from prison someday, she will always remain a part of history that for the moment continues to repeat itself. M.G. Perez, KPBS News.
And we have some breaking news for you. A woman is dead and a man is in critical condition after a plane crash in Oceanside. The accident was reported around 2 this afternoon, just east of Bob Maxwell Memorial Field. The 2 people had been aboard a plane operated by the skydiving company Go Jump Oceanside. The woman was pronounced dead at Tri-City Medical Center, where the man is still hospitalized. The cause of the crash was not immediately clear. San Diego State University is responding to a published report saying 5 SDSU football players raped an underage girl last October and has kept quiet about it ever since. San Diego police are handling the investigation, and the report says SDPD has been mum as well. Here's more from KPBS reporter John Carroll.
The story in the Los Angeles Times and published in the Union Tribune as well quotes messages sent to university officials through an anonymous reporting system. In one, a student athlete says, "I'm very scared and worried that nothing is being done about this." The student is referring to claims that 5 football players, 1 senior and 4 freshmen, raped an underage, unconscious girl at a party being held in a house off campus. It says the girl was left bloodied and bruised. It's been more than 7 months since the October 16th incident, and the university has yet to launch an internal investigation or student disciplinary proceeding. In a lengthy statement to KPBS, university spokesperson LaMonica Everett Haynes rejects the description of the school staying silent. It is inaccurate to state that SDSU has remained silent during the initial reporting. Since the San Diego Police Department informed the university of its investigation in October, the university has been in regular communication with SDPD in support of its active investigation. There is a law called the Clery Act that mandates universities report campus crimes such as rape. But in an email this afternoon to the entire campus community, SDSU President Adela de la Torre said, "The university did not and could not issue a campus-wide Clery timely warning as per Clery, as we are legally restricted from issuing a Clery timely warning about incidents outside of our jurisdiction." The fact that the alleged incident happened at a house off campus means it's SDPD's investigation. We asked both SDPD and the university for an interview so that we could ask follow-up questions, but both instead decided to issue statements. The one from SDPD says, in part, "San Diego Police Department sex crimes investigators have made this case a priority and have been diligent in pursuing leads and conducting interviews. The investigation itself is complicated and ongoing. Revealing any information prematurely would not only compromise the integrity of the case, but could be damaging to anyone directly involved with the investigation." The university has put up a webpage with more information on the case and resources available to students. We're putting it up on the screen here, and it will be in the story on our website, kpbs.org. But tonight, a lingering question. Why did it take a front-page story to prompt statements from the police department and the university about such an abhorrent crime alleged to have happened more than 7 months ago? John Carroll, KPBS News.
As COVID-19 cases spike, San Diego County health officials are urging residents to mask up in public places. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman has more.
We just had Memorial Day. Typically, the pattern is 2 weeks later, we start seeing an increase in cases and admissions to the hospitals. And then we still have July 4th.
Scripps Health Chief Medical Officer Dr. Gonzalez Sharif says their hospitals are already seeing increases in COVID patients, and it's not just among those most at risk.
And yesterday, we had a 28-year-old in the hospital, 28, with no underlying disorders at all.
Weekly case counts have tripled in the last month, and that's not counting all the at-home testing, which Sharif says isn't 100% accurate.
Even if you think you're COVID negative and you have symptoms, you still need to be careful around other people because you still could have COVID.
Countywide, COVID hospitalizations are relatively low but ticking upward. On Friday, there were just over 200 San Diegans admitted. Hospitalizations typically lag behind newly reported cases.
It's a modest surge.
UC San Diego Health infectious disease specialist Dr. Francesca Toriani says the modest case surge could be here for a while. She's watching hospitalizations, especially as new variants begin to surface.
They may be more severe, and so we might see in the next few weeks the number of hospitalized patients going up.
Toriani says right now masking up isn't a bad idea, especially when indoors or at large outdoor events. She says San Diegans already know how to protect themselves and others.
The new normal is not throwing away our masks and not thinking about this anymore, because we can't stand it anymore. But it's more getting into that system of, okay, rates are up, better mask.
Hospital leaders are preparing for what could be coming.
If we keep going this trajectory, remember we're still short-staffed. There's a shortage of staff across the country. If we start seeing more COVID patients, ultimately that means that we have to start, decreasing our surgical volume and all the things that we've gone through before that we don't want to do. And it's really not fair to those people that have been waiting. So if you haven't had your booster yet, you still haven't been vaccinated, there's still time to do those things that we know work.
Health officials encourage those testing positive to seek out treatments that are aimed at keeping people out of hospitals. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
A former San Diego politician and one of President Trump's former trade advisors today was indicted on 2 counts of contempt of Congress. Peter Navarro was indicted for his failure to comply with a subpoena from the House of Representatives by the committee investigating the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Navarro's San Diego history include failed attempts to run for local and state offices 5 times. He taught economics at UC Irvine before being appointed by Trump. Each count of contempt of Congress carries a minimum of 30 days in jail and a fine of up to $100,000. A better than expected jobs report came out today amid fears of an economic recession and the Federal Reserve's effort to bring down inflation. But as Gloria Pazmino reports, prices are increasing and your paycheck may not be keeping up.
The job market is growing steady.
That's a sign of a healthy economy with steady growth, rising wages for working families, everyday cost easing up.
U.S. employers added 390,000 jobs in May. That's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics monthly jobs report released Friday. But despite the growth, inflation remains a top concern.
And there's no denying that high prices, particularly around gasoline and food, are a real problem for people. But there's every reason for the American people to feel confident that we'll meet these challenges.
The unemployment rate stayed at 3.6%. That's slightly higher than the 50-year low recorded in February 2020, just before the start of the pandemic. Leisure and hospitality saw some of the biggest growth, adding 84,000 jobs. The average hourly wage, $31.95, is up 5.2% compared to last year. But despite the gains, Americans are still feeling the pinch.
We're living in a once-in-a-lifetime kind of situation here with the pandemic and the war in Ukraine and other challenges.
While your paycheck may be increasing, it's likely not keeping up with inflation, and fears of a recession are looming.
That hurricane is right out there down the road coming our way.
In New York, Gloria Pazmino, KPBS News.
The San Diego County Sheriff's Department has had challenges with staffing, and it's inviting the public to explore available job opportunities. The department is holding an open house tomorrow. Visitors can get a close look at robots and gear used by bomb and arson units, and they'll have the chance to try out an obstacle course that academy recruits go through.
Physical fitness is very important for law enforcement, especially when attending the academy. We have a rigorous 6-month academy you will attend. PT is a very big part of that.
There are also other job openings, including dispatcher positions. In January, the County Board of Supervisors said over the last 2 years, there was a 15% increase in people leaving the San Diego Sheriff's Department and a 25% decrease in applications. Flavored tobacco and nicotine products will soon be banned in the city of San Diego. Mayor Todd Gloria signed the Stop Adolescent Addiction to Flavored E-Cigarettes Act into law. It makes it illegal to sell flavored e-cigarette and tobacco products, including menthol. The ordinance does not apply to the sale of shisha, premium cigars, loose-leaf tobacco, or tobacco-flavored e-cigarettes. The law is set to take effect the 1st of next year. The statewide ban on flavored tobacco products will go before voters this November. Arts, music, and food are on tap at today's City Heights Street Food Festival. The event is back after a pandemic pause of 2 years. KPBS Speaks City Heights reporter Jacob Ayer gives us a look.
The second City Heights Street Food Fest will include live art, music, drinks, and street food, all in the heart of the community. City Heights CDC Economic Development Program Manager Sonia Jimenez says they're expecting hundreds of people.
Growing up in City Heights, not having something that you have to go out to other parts of San Diego to have like on a Friday night it's nice to be able to stay here and to be able to be with like your friends and families.
Many in the community are looking forward to celebrating together again after a couple difficult years, including City Heights resident Julio Garcia.
It's super important, right, that we keep going with these type of events. We have a lot of opportunity, a lot of empty lots, a lot of spaces here in the community that we just need to keep taking advantage of.
All registration and ticketing proceeds will be used to provide job assistance, food, housing, safer streets, and other support to the City Heights community. And the vendors, who will sell a wide range of foods at the event, get to keep 100% of their sales.
We saw that a lot of vendors had to pause their own businesses because they couldn't sell in different locations that wasn't available for them. A lot of individuals did start trying to sell like in the streets, but it is still a bit of a challenge, and still being able to give them an opportunity to be able to sell free of cost is something that's great since they're taking in all the profits for themselves.
The event goes from 5 to 9 p.m. today at the 4090 University Avenue lot. Ticket prices are $10 for City Heights residents and $20 for the general public. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
They're out on the beaches making sure you stay safe, but a shortage of lifeguards is becoming an issue in some areas. For example, in Oceanside, the fire department there says they're down a dozen lifeguards, meaning some beaches are less staffed. They're doing what they can to spread staff out to maximize coverage. They do advise beachgoers to try and use the ocean water where you can visibly see a lifeguard in a tower. Lifeguards also remind you to watch out for currents, riptides, and undertow areas. Gas prices hit new record highs this week, and that creates more demand for alternatives like electric cars. SDSU's Mira Kopik tells us about two big moves that aim to boost production and lower prices.
General Motors announced that they reduced the price of the Chevy Bolt by over 30%. The Bolt is going to be now priced at about $26,500, which is the least expensive electric vehicle in the country. Ford, on the other hand, announced about $3.7 billion in new investments in electric vehicles. About half of that investment is going to go to a plant in Michigan that's going to build the new F-150 Lightning electric truck. The only issue for consumers is where do they charge them? So they can charge them at home. Employers, apartment buildings, others have vehicles charging stations. But the big charging infrastructure is in that Build Back Better program that the Biden administration had proposed that stalled in Congress. So unless Congress decides they're going to focus on climate change activities or electric vehicles separately, getting that infrastructure of electric charging stations across the country is going to be the next big hurdle. But the consumers who are going to buy now are going to benefit from some competitive car prices.
Here's a look at our weather headlines, and as we check them out, really no big changes. We have the night and the morning clouds penetrating inland, as there was some cooling to start off the weekend. Looks like Saturday will be the coolest day, and we'll see some breezy afternoons and evenings, so some strong gusty winds will be with us. And that could lead to an increased fire threat over the weekend with the wind and the dry conditions. Here's a look at the wind advisories that we have through late tonight and early in the morning. They're farther to the north up here, so around our area. Wind's not strong enough to cause any major issues quite yet. Overnight tonight, clouds thickening up. Temperatures will stay in the lower 60s. We'll be near 60 in Oceanside. Escondido 57, 52 Ramona. El Cajon's at 59, Borrego Springs a mild 70, Mountain Laguna cooling down, and Campos down to about 50 degrees. Here's a look at the clouds on Saturday. So we wake up the clouds of the coast and then in the interior valleys, and then the clouds will be retreating some, but notice they never really clear away from the beaches, and then they come right back in again late in the afternoon into the evening hours. Looking at our forecast temperatures, seasonable here, right along the coast, close to 70 degrees. Not as warm in the interior valleys. Temperatures will stay in the 70s. Borrego Springs is at 98, and Mount Laguna at 67. So we're looking at some more dry weather, and we'll see some rather active winds. And so Saturday into Sunday, we have this weak trough nearby, but it's really not doing too much except stir up some winds and bring in that marine layer. That marine layer should start to retreat early in the week. Gets a little bit milder here as we check out the inland sections. So you can see temperatures back in the 80s early next week. And up in the mountains, it'll be quite breezy through the weekend. And last stop, the deserts. And you can see triple digits are back on Sunday. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
It's a bewildering statement, but it's true. Bees are legally considered fish in California. That is the ruling from a state appellate court this week. It came about after farming groups sued the State Fish and Game Commission for adding some bumblebees to the endangered species list. California's endangered species law protects fish, which are defined as invertebrates. Because the act has protected snails and other invertebrates that live on land, the court sided with the commission and interpreted the legislation to also include bees. What is in a name? Well, quite a lot, especially if you're a little blue penguin without one. After receiving 2,500 votes this morning, Birch Aquarium officially named one of its little blue penguins. His name is Azulito. It's a nod to our binational region. It is an apt name as well because it means little blue in Spanish. The name reveal was fun. Divers unfurled a banner underwater in the giant kelp forest with the winning name.
The only place you can see them on the West Coast. In the United States, there's not a lot of places that have them. They're found naturally in New Zealand and Australia.
And this is the first time the aquarium has invited the public to pick a name for one of its animals, and it may have kicked off a tradition of naming penguins in the future. Guests can meet the little guy and his colony starting on July 12th. San Diego International Fringe Festival's 10th anniversary is underway. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando says this year's in-person event may be smaller, but it still offers a wildly diverse selection of shows.
San Diego International Fringe is off and running after being sidelined by the pandemic for 2 years. Once again, audiences get to enjoy a creative assault on their senses as artists from around the globe present uncensored and unjuried hour-long shows for the next 10 days. There's gender-bending Shakespeare.
What piece of work is a man?
German stand-up.
What God do you believe in? I just have to say, honestly, guys, I'm sorry, but I'm European and we don't really need God because we have gun laws and healthcare.
Pole dancing. And opera.
I'm not one of them.
Composer Nicholas Revelis makes his Fringe debut with the chamber opera Aftermath, which he wrote during the pandemic.
It's a vignette about two characters who confront each other across a sliding glass door on the patio of a contemporary upscale home in Mission Beach. During the second or third year of a pandemic lockdown and the aftermath of a tactical nuclear attack on a military base in the area. I really wanted these characters to be locked down and to be completely isolated and have to make decisions within that social context.
I went away to college, pre-med, grad school.
Evan, sung by Lucia Leone, is a non-binary character who needs to convince Ruth to let them into her house to escape the aftermath. The show is presented by Bodhi Tree Concerts at the Template Coffee House. This is what's known as a BYOV, or Bring Your Own Venue.
Welcome to the cabaret.
Since Cotta Pierce Morgan is the owner of Les Girls, she once again provided her own venue for her new Fringe show.
It's called Bones Abide, and it's about the Armenian genocide, which took place at the beginning of the 20th century. And it's about the survival of Najale, who's based on my lead actress's grandmother. And the core of the show really is dealing with the cruelties of social injustice.
Bones Abide exemplifies the bold mix of styles that can be found at Fringe. But Renee Westbrook's Shelter represents the stripped-down, emotionally raw, and elegantly minimalist splendor of a one-woman show.
It's loosely based on my first night homeless on the streets of Santa Monica and Los Angeles. Just walk, Davina. You can do this. Just put one foot in front of the other. You can, please, you can do this. You're college educated. You have a degree in a storage unit that's about to be auctioned off to the highest bidder. You can do this. I can't do it. I can't do it, God. I'm not going to make it. Please help me. I wanted it to be about the various definitions of shelter. The different characters have their own meaning of what shelter means. To Davina Gray, the main character, it's a home, a roof. You know, to Lazarus, it's nobody's going to ever hurt me again. That's his shelter, his karate.
You don't got to remind me of that, because I know, and I know what loan is. Your loan is shelter like you think. Just because I don't have a roof over my head, don't mean I ain't got no shelter. I could widen my shelter. I could widen, and you know what? I got shelter on the inside.
That's one of the things that I wanted to just express, is that contemporary homelessness as well has a deep meaning for everyone, because so many people are experiencing it now. But primarily I wanted to get out there the various definitions of what shelter is, because we all have different ideas of what it should be.
Whether it's the terror of being alone on the streets, the joy of physical comedy, or the beauty of bodies in motion, San Diego Fringe has it all. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And you can catch the San Diego International Fringe Festival through June 12th. And you can find all of tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: by viewers like you. Thank you.